Greetings, everyone. We're recording on Sunday, July 11th, 2021, and I'm your host, Sean. Joining me today are co-hosts Zach.
Hey, everyone.
And Rob.
Heyo.
You're listening to episode 11 of the 4 for 4 podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we take a deeper dive on 4 select shows from the current anime season and discuss them in 4-episode batches week by week. This week, we're concluding our coverage for episodes 9 through 11 of 86. But before we get started on that discussion, I think we owe an apology to the audience for our absence these last couple of weeks. As you're listening to this, we'll have released the couple prior episodes very shortly before this one, pretty much in tandem. So for that, I deeply apologize. It's as I gave the explanation in our last recording. There's just been a perfect convergence of bad luck with scheduling, health issues, and in my case, pretty substantial health issues that has just prevented me from being able to reliably get the recording and editing done to make this a timely, consistent podcast experience. So for that, I deeply apologize. I'm pretty sure that shouldn't be an issue going forward. We probably will have a couple announcements to make in the next couple of weeks, but as of right now, to our listeners, again, I deeply apologize for the delay in these releases, and moving forward, I deeply wish that this will not happen again, or I very much hope it will not happen again. So,
I mean, the circumstances were pretty extreme to begin with, so I think even going into our last Megalobox discussion, there was all sorts of different issues with health and, like you said, scheduling and everything. So I think it was all of us just having those problems at the same time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, free time is not an especially plentiful thing we all have at the moment. So
I've got
on top of that,
I've got an old dog that doesn't sleep well for fireworks and storms, and seeing as we just got past the 4th, and where I'm currently at, we've had a lot of fucking storms, so I haven't been getting a lot of sleep lately. Like 2 a.m. waking up, maybe like 3-4 hours of sleep, so.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely associate in that regard. But again, just a quick apology from me. I definitely don't want this to be a long-term pattern going forward. But with that, anything from you guys before we move forward into the episode discussion?
As far as housekeeping, not really. I think we have quite a bit to go over. From what I understand, we're covering episodes 9 through 11 of
Correct.
86.
And I'm glad you brought that up because episode 12 is almost purely a recap. So
yeah, like besides like the very end sequence, yeah, it's pretty much all recap. So
yeah, so we decided not to cover episode 12. And just to be clear, there is a second season announced for 86.
Quarters 2, let's go.
Which is interesting to me considering how this stretch of episodes ends. But I'm also aware that this is the original stretch of what the author wrote. I believe it was for a contest, like a light novel writing contest. So this first season is meant to be pretty holistic in the story it's telling. It kind of leaves it open at the end to where the story might go. But I feel in the end, the themes, the characters, everything's kind of wrapped up with a nice tidy bow at the end. Honestly, it could have ended where it did, and I would have been completely happy and fulfilled with it.
It could have ended on episode 9, in my opinion.
Man, I don't know. We went over this last time we covered 86, but there's not a wasted episodes. I would argue, except maybe the recap episode. But even then, if you've missed kind of what's been going on or the main beats of the story, I would still even argue episode 12 serves its purpose fine. But with that being said, I still stand by our viewpoint from last episode. I think everything we see and everything that we experience with 86 is all relevant and necessary.
It's so hard for me because I feel like I can't not have this discussion when we bring up the tightness of the writing in the show. Because any other season, almost 86 to me, not only would it be the best show of the season, but I would also say it's easily one of the best written shows of the year.
Oh, hands down.
But Megalobox and Odd Taxi,
I mean, like, I get it, but
especially,
and I really love Megalobox, but I have never had, like, with the Megalobox, I never had the feels that I've had.
Yeah, no.
Even just episode 9 of this series, which I didn't even want to like. Like, I was not sold on 86, but, like, episode 9, I was just like, yep, I am fully invested now.
Yeah, it's full throttle. And when it comes to tightness of writing, I stand by Odd Taxi probably being, I can't think of a more tightly written anime, like, period. I just can't. Like, I can't argue with that. That is the most beautifully cohesive, not a second wasted narrative I've probably ever seen in an anime, like, just period. But Megalobox and 86 actually come close, and 86 is wild to me because unlike Megalobox and Odd Taxi, it is an adaptation, but it's like by it's almost Pictures, no less. Adaptation.
Like, I did,
yeah.
Like, by the studio, I've kind of unfortunately come to expect very
low bar shit from A1.
Yeah, but no, like,
I would say middling to, like, mid upper. Like, I think I would on say A1
middling to low bar.
For me, it's been like, middling to low.
Yeah, me too.
Even with that being said, though, this has easily surpassed any, like, semblance of what expectations I had.
It's definitely the best surprise for sure. That, like, it might be one of the biggest surprises I've ever had, like, going into a show. Like, I'm like, is this really this good? And I'm like, every week I'm like, oh wait, yeah, and oh wait, it's actually better this week.
It is, right? Because, like I said, like, at the beginning of the show, like, I wasn't necessarily,
I was definitely
sold on this show.
For sure. Same. I was seeing the potential, though, by, like, the third episode. Like,
right.
Like,
well,
this has chops.
Like, you guys saw that potential, but I still, like, this was the show on at least my radar. That was not something that I was looking forward to watching. And I'm not saying that, like, I didn't dislike it up into episode 9, which is what we're covering now, but, like, once we hit this particular episode, like, there's
brought it all together.
100% no going back. No going back. If you're not sold on the story by now, then fuck off. You're not. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time investment. But, like, and I guess, like, I'm really kind of like a whole, like, part of that subscription of 3 episodes or more and you don't sell me. And I'm not saying that, like, out of the 3 episodes it didn't sell me. Like, I was sort of invested. Like,
there has to be a hook of some sort. There has to be something that, like, catches your interest or eye to stay invested.
Right. Like, I wasn't even, like, 25% invested in the story, but as it grew on me, I just kept getting more and more invested into this story. And by episode 9, like, I'm at, like, 200% now. Like, fuck.
I mean, I'm ashamed to say, but I can pretty confidently say that if we weren't doing this podcast, I probably never would have checked the show out. So
I'm not sure if I would have either.
Well, yeah, no, I'm glad we're doing it for that reason, because holy hell, this show is amazing. And it's like crushing my soul trying to determine what the best of the season is, because it's almost dead even between the other 2 shows I mentioned.
Yeah, there's some very tight competition between them all, but before we get ahead of ourselves, we should probably
for sure, yeah, we
dive
should.
In.
Yeah, that's a conversation we should really have next episode, or maybe the one after. But yeah, let's get into it. So, beginning with episode 9, we begin at September 28th, Stellar 2148, and we only see 5 left of the Spearhead squadron, as we saw last time. Shin, Raiden, Anju, Theo, and Kurena, as an entire Legion army approaches them. So Shin hears the shouting of his brother calling his name, and once again he grins at the prospect that he can finally end things with his brother. So, as I believe I briefly mentioned last time, the intro sequence, we're now seeing almost the entire deceased Spearhead squadron facing away from the camera. So
yep, every episode that we see the faces and have the name drops of the squadron, they get added to the intro sequence, like in that flower field.
Yep, we know we're at the end here. And I believe as of the prior episode, Lena was given the final recon mission order for them. So they've begun their last mission.
The voices are so unsettling. So unsettling. Like within the intro sequence of this episode. But I'm still at the point where like, let's go, baby! Let's go!
Yep. There's going to be an end one way or another this episode. So next we see Shin trying to close the gap between him and his brother, again, whose full name is Shorei, or Rei for short, with the others remarking that this isn't how the Legion fight. But again, they now have the Shepherd in Rei. They have much more specific orders now, and they're able to perform much more complex functions on the battlefield. Raiden, I believe, remarks that Shin is being purposefully kind of herded to Rei because both brothers clearly want to have a one-on-one, mano-a-mano sort of thing. Shin, at this point, I believe, is almost killed by a scout unit, but is even shot by Rei's own cannon, so he stops the unit himself. Because
pretty much getting rid of any Legion that would interfere with his confrontal with his brother.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe here Shin says he wants to kill me with his own hands, and he's saying I'm the same in this regard. So it's deeply personal between both of them. Like, even in this state, Rei is still very joined at the hip with his brother. So the others are running low on ammo. All seems hopeless. And probably visually my favorite part of the episode, the sky becomes alight with the incoming mortar fire, as directed by Lena, who borrows Raiden's left eye to confirm, that the targets are being hit. So, and again, she's doing this with the Pararade. Normally it's only meant to be used for audio, but it can be used for other senses. However, this overloads the brain and is dangerous. So she's doing this at the peril of her own vision. And this actually angers Raiden, but she's like, it was brief, it doesn't set in immediately, whatever. So the shells are clustered, completely carpets the Legion, destroys a huge swath of them, and she says the Republic doesn't play by any sane rules when responding to Raiden's protests. So she says, there's no reason for me to either. And at this point, it's clear to us that she's taking action into her own hands. The proper way be damned. Before I continue, any more thoughts from you guys on this intro?
Well, why don't you take the floor?
Yes. Like, what a fucking scene with those mortars starting out with how the camera panned on the skyline. Yep. And it just turned fucking orange with the mortars.
It's the midair detonation where they all cluster. It's awesome.
What, out of all the episodes, this particular scene within all the episodes is my most watched. I go to YouTube to rewatch this scene because it's just so fucking awesome and so hype. Everybody's against the back of the wall. They're on the ropes, and then just Lena comes in with this shit. And I'm like, yes.
Also, just since we're on this, I mean, I don't call it a tangent. It's very on point. But I would also like to, I want to praise the art direction and those who worked on the animation of this series, because it takes a little bit to have the 3D animated those machines that they pilot. Like they kind of have to grow on you. But when they pull some like ufotable shit with some of the like special effects, and like the 3D modeling sometimes looks seamless with like especially that scene with the mortars. Like
the mortars looked amazing.
Yeah, they like that's all incredible quality for TV animation.
Yeah, I mean the Juggernauts definitely look more economical in their animation, but it still looks good. Like the choreography and like the movements are solid as hell. It's just sometimes...
right. Like they feel real and grounded. Like they don't feel either weightless or like.
But given the constraints of TV budget, I mean, they're probably like the frames are probably not as high as you want them to be, but like the movements are good. Like they're way better than you would have any reasonable expectation for them to be in a production like this. So again, mad props to A1 for just realizing probably the best possible adaptation of this material.
Giving props to A1 like almost feels dirty because like I don't want to talk shit about A1 because like we've gotten decent adaptations from them, but like they've kind of been like the let's kick them while they're down.
If you're talking decent, we're spanning more than 10 years ago, so you're kind of pushing it.
Yeah. So no, great scene. Incredibly dramatic. Like visually, it's probably my favorite moment in the entire series, at least from a battle like perspective. So next we see Shin skillfully closing the gap between him and his brother. He's using the trees and the grapple hooks for evasion, with him managing to slice what appears to be like the radiator or some sort of important component to Rei's like super big low. Like it looks like a low, but like a really big one. So Shin tries to finish the job by shelling the damaged area. He thinks he has it in the bag with his big cannon, but so his round, the cannon shell, is stopped by an unexpected fluid-like substance. And this clearly surprises the hell out of him, because this is tech he has not seen from the Legion. So this fluid takes the form of hands after this point. It starts grabbing a hold of Shin's Juggernaut and eventually just yeets him away. And this gives him a head injury, rattling him. And Lena takes note of this. She's aware of Shin's situation. She calls out his name, causing the others to react in fear and worry. But Lena then requests to Karena to determine the enemy's position, the enemy in this case being Rei, as accurately as possible to save Shin. So Karena, not a fan of Lena, appears to, even in this moment, reluctantly agree, as she also wants to save Shin. So from Rei's perspective, we learned that in his mind, he's saying this, he was holding back quite a bit, fearful that he may have damaged Shin to some degree, but he's still elated, saying, finally, you're coming back to me. So we see the remnants of the Spearhead come to assist before he can finish the job taking Shin's head. And he calls them insects before they grapple two of his legs. At this point, he realizes he's being stalled, and he looks up, seeing the incoming mortars from above. So Rei instinctively protects Shin from the oncoming mortar, angered that his supposed comrades would destroy him as well. But it turns out these are duds, after he has a vision with young Lena when he's younger, from Lena saying, you want to protect him, but you're going to kill him. And there's an excellent parallel, she slaps his figurative younger self in the face right as the mortars hit his unit. So again, the series is endlessly creative in how it utilizes its symbology for these scenes, and this is one of those perfect examples. It's really on the nose, almost to the point of cheesiness, but I still loved it. What did you guys think of this?
Oh, hell yeah. No, even the visual storytelling, you could take the text off the screen, you could see these characters and what Rei's visualizing in his head at that moment. Like basically when he squeezes his hands and there's blood on his hands, you see like Shin's young body like dead behind in the fire.
Exactly,
but like you said, it's all on the nose, but it serves to great effect.
Yeah, but also take note, the blood in his hands, he was holding his half of the chocolate, the half that Lena willingly gave back to him. But when she said that, that's when it turned to blood. Like, again, that seemingly innocuous small detail, but it's so meaningful. Like, every scene is just packed with meaning. That's why I love this show, man.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, this is a horse we're going to beat to death even going forward, but there's hardly, if ever, a moment that's wasted that doesn't serve some meaningful purpose. It's good stuff.
I mean, again, sometimes it's extremely on the nose, on the verge of being cheesy, but it's, in this case, I think it's just earned. It's thoroughly earned. Sorry, you're going to say something, Rob.
Personally, I want to bring a viewpoint where Shin wasn't getting strangled by his brother.
Yep. What happens right after. Yep.
Yeah, like right after. Like Shin, like his brother ends up caressing his cheek instead of strangling him and saying sorry, like,
yeah, man. Yeah. The feelings, it's supercharged in this moment. Because, I mean, this has all been building up to this moment. Everything with Shin, his entire desire, his own personal reason for living is all this moment. So, as you say, right after, we see Shin waking to a vision of his brother strangling him like when he was a child, but he's snapped out of it by Lena and the cries of the others. Shin is lifted up by Rei. His entire juggernaut is... but his cannon is now point blank to the weak spot, making the final blow, ending his brother. But it's at this moment, when the hands have entered the unit and start caressing his cheek, that's where he says, "I'm sorry." And this is when Shin kind of realizes it's done. And this is where the grief and sadness basically just start to overflow in Shin. So we get the ending music at the halfway mark of the episode, where Shin is finally able to grieve. Raiden asks Lena to cut the feed, as Shin wouldn't want her listening to his grieving. She agrees, cuts it, and she takes a look back at Annette, saying it's over, with Annette huddled in a corner, clearly the one making it possible to take control of the mortars. And we see a flashback of Lena forcing her hand, going back to Annette after being told to never come back. And she reasons out from the last conversation they had that the boy Annette regretted abandoning as a child was in fact Shin. And she uses this against her, guilting her to comply. Help me, because if you're helping me, you're helping Shin. She's saying, I know your friend well. I talk to him all the time. And Shin is Undertaker. This greatly disturbs Annette. She wants to know if he's still alive and that if he still hates her. And Lena's just like, you abandoned him twice, so you're going to do it a third time. This kind of seals the deal in getting Annette to cooperate with her. But the ending scene with Shin and Rei and Annette, what did you guys think?
Oh, hell yeah. No, this is Lena's most badass moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's done with the bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the moment where she takes matters into her own hands, and even not much as blackmail, but uses Annette's own guilty conscience against her to like force her hand into making up for her abandoning her responsibility to Shin and his brother. No, it was another well directed scene. I love it a lot. It speaks for itself. I think the dialogue is very rich here too, but I don't have much to expand on it besides just watch it. It's all very inclusive and well directed. What do you think, Rob?
Well, 100%, yeah. Lena's bearing her fangs here. Like, you're right, both of you. She's over it. She's done trying to play nice with the Republic to the point where she's just like, well, nope, fuck it. I'm going to manipulate how I can in order to get what's going to be best for the 86. And what an incredible scene. She literally dragged Annette out into the rain with her.
Mhm.
Well, in a very clever way too. I mean, she she asks if Shin's okay, but Lena immediately rebuttals, "Why do you care? It's not your problem," like as he said. But Annette of her own volition goes out into the rain to meet Lena where she is. Like she's basically giving up her ground. I mean, she's as vulnerable as she's ever been in this moment.
And the thing is she doesn't even call her by her first name anymore. It's all of a sudden Oscar and Rose.
This is very formal fuck
detail.
you language.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, the distance between them is immense now, but as you guys have pointed out, Lena knows she knows the entire foundation of her insecurity and what has driven her to her wretched, state of being. It's that foundational guilt that she feels. And I mean, in this instance, to protect her men, Lena has no problem seizing on that. So next, to end off the episode, the Spearhead squad proceeds to thank Lena for what she did. After everything's done, the battle's over, they openly resolve to continue the suicide mission at the end, with Lena helplessly watching their signals head into out-of-range territory. During this entire time, they're just making small talk like, well, we weren't expecting to survive that, but thank you very much, Lena, but we have a mission to do, so let's just keep continuing forward. They banter, they make a bunch of small talk. Lena's devastated because while she did save them in this battle, she basically did the final thing she could possibly do. They're basically out of her hands now. So she implores them to wait as she futilely attempts to keep in range by running on foot in their direction as long as she can. Set to really dramatic music. The squad continues their small talk. So Lena breaks down as her heel gives way, and they give their final goodbye with her knowing the moment that they go beyond range because of her para-raid device. So we get imagery of the red spider lilies blowing in the wind at this moment and 5 birds flying away from the sunset to the credit music. So with that, that's the end of the episode. Any final thoughts on episode 9? Because this is easily one of the best in the series.
Oh yeah, yep. hot damn! You want to talk about everything the series has led up to? I mean, this pretty much is the emotional climax, and
everything pays off for the entire series in this episode.
Yeah, and the best part for me is not only the contents of this episode, but I feel like the next 2 are just supplementary to
They're
it. But
kind
man,
of
it's
almost
just
an epilogue, if I have to say.
Yeah, but
in a way.
Man, I even love episode 10 and 11 more than this.
Yeah, no,
especially 10. I actually really love what goes beyond this just to conclude this.
And I have interesting things to say about 10 specifically, but yeah, in a way, this is the climax of this first part of this first season. The next 2 are kind of an epilogue and aftermath, I would say. But that does not make them any less emotionally charged or devastating.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. No. Episode 9 is fantastic. This is the first huge payoff to happen. But we're not done with the emotional payoffs.
I think episode 9 is literally GOAT of this entire seasonal anime. This was my favorite episode out of all of the anime that I've watched this season. Period. No contest.
Completely understandable. I do not blame you in there. I do not blame you in that regard.
No, I mean, we gush about it. We can gush about it more, but I think the audience may get the gist. We think this is a very solid episode to a very solid series, and it's not even ended yet.
God, it's beyond solid at this point, man. But with that, let's move on to episode 10. So the first scene we see is a visual montage of the Spearhead unit heading deeper into the enemy territory, but also just taking some time to enjoy the beauty of nature while also intermittently hiding from the Legion. So we kind of see them in the end of this intro sequence hiding in an abandoned pillbox area. And post-intro sequence, we're finding that it's October 13th, 2148. So Raiden and Shin are standing by a river, which is also kind of by a lake we find, at dawn after a night of hiding, acknowledging that they can't cross the river. Like, there's a bridge nearby, but we also saw some scout contingents crossing it, as from the night before, and they're worried about crossing the bridge. Yeah,
pretty much a risk not worth taking.
Yeah, exactly. We also learned from Theo that it's been about 2 weeks since the beginning of the special recon mission, because I want to say that began around October 1st or September 31st or something like that. So, yeah, Raiden says to move forward. They'll need a bridge, as I said, but again, the scout contingents are a real issue. It's not worth the risk. Next, we see another montage of the squad appreciating the environment while washing their clothes, with Raiden and Shin fishing, because I believe Shin said something along the lines of, we're not in a hurry. Let's just take our time, clean our clothes.
I mean, yeah, he literally says, do we really need to move forward? Like,
exactly.
Pretty much prompting them all to just breathe and stay put for a bit.
Yep. So in this scene with Shin and Raiden fishing, Shin ribs Raiden for his romanticism, because I believe he said some along the lines, like several episodes back in an earlier mission. This is all anecdotal, but he said some along the lines of something about admiring the night sky or something. And again, so like Shin ribs him for his romanticism, calling back to that moment. And he lets out a genuine laugh that we just have not seen from him up to this point. And we can kind of see Raiden having a little bit of a concerned look on his face. And they then discuss what Shin did with his brother's name after that last battle. He says he left the name tag, or something along those lines. And I think he said Fido, like it's recorded with Fido. So,
yep.
So they go into more detail about what he'll do with the others, so the other names he's carrying, and how long they'll be able to survive before they run out of materials completely. So Raiden next asks Shin if he'll have regrets, such as when Lena asks him if there's anything he'd like to do when he was free, but Shin just brushes this aside as a frivolity, basically, because we're here to die, basically, is what I got from that. Raiden doesn't press further in this regard, but we can see there's like a mounting concern in Raiden from this exchange. Any thoughts from you guys on these last couple scenes?
Well,
yeah.
You
go ahead, Rob.
So, I mean, like, at one point, we get this really nice juxtaposition between, like, everything is very surreal, peaceful, and pretty, but the authors are still giving us that looming threat of the Legion, and like, holy shit, that bridge shot with all the Legion crossing it. So this is freedom, and everybody seems happy. But yeah, like, Raiden's straight up saying, like, Shin, like, what's your drive now? And Shin's like, I really just I don't have a drive anymore. I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in my life.
Exactly. Like, I agree. That's the sort of the message I got from it. Like, that's easily where Raiden is drawing his concerns, because now, like, Shin had a motivation and an end goal that was keeping him on point and, like, sharp. But
the weight's lifted from his soul, but literally all the weight. He has no weight on his soul now. Like, there's a abject lack of urgency in Shin that is really concerning to Raiden, because while they are ostensibly on a suicide mission, their prerogative in the past has always been, yeah, we're probably going to die, but we have every intent of living up to that point. And Raiden's concerned because the drive is gone from you, dude, and I don't like seeing that.
Well, and think about it. Just now, this comes to fruition. We won't spoil it quite yet, but yeah, basically that lack of drive and like motivation to keep the team together and safe is
like
at the risk.
And I won't go too much further with this, but just speaking on Shin as a character, I've always liked Shin compared to almost every other of his archetype throughout this medium, because unlike most of his peers in this fiction, Shin is very clearly an empathetic, troubled, very flawed human being. Like, yeah, he has this preternatural ability to be an amazing pilot, and he has ESP or whatever, but like, he's a very emotionally rich, like, impulsive and protective person. Like, he cares about the people around him, and he exhibits that.
I feel like his combat abilities are all supplemental to his like emotional weight. Like, I feel like his biggest strengths are that of his character and not his like physical prowess.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like those are all complementary.
Like, he puts on a stoic front, but that's largely a front. It's a persona he's had to construct over the years of all these voices. Otherwise, he would just go mad. Like,
exactly.
He has to suppress his emotions.
Exactly. You see it all melt away the moment his mission is fulfilled. Like, his brother is free now, so that weight is finally gone. He let it all out in those tears in the last episode.
Right, like, he doesn't like that was his entirety of like his character motivation was to free his brother. And now that that's done, like, where does he go as a character?
Absolutely. And I definitely, like, I'm just going to stop it there because there's later scenes that go way more into this. But yeah, I like Shin, and Raiden is definitely right to be concerned here. That's all I'm going to say. But before we move forward, I do just want to say I've learned since seeing this episode that this is actually an entirely anime original episode. None of this was ever
really.
Yeah, none of this was
ever.
Oh man,
I can't imagine not seeing this.
But it's not only my opinion, but it's many others' opinions. People are also fan of the source material, that this is the crowning achievement of this show, and it shows that the people who adapted this really cares about this, because they took this episode to make what comes not only after, but also what came before, all the more impactful. This was an incredibly effective bridge episode between the catharsis we saw in episode 9 and what will be coming afterwards.
Oh, yeah, no. I could not imagine what happens in episode 11 without this.
Absolutely. Like, this is one of the best, like, anime original episodes I've seen in an adaptation. If not, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Like, you could label it filler, but this is literally as good as filler gets.
No, I'm not. I won't even. I won't even.
That's doing it a disservice, like, honestly.
I know, but I'm saying, like, if you want to put labels on something, since this is anime original, like, I'm just saying, if you were even enter that territory, this is at its peak.
Like, if you needed any more convincing that the staff had, like, all the best intentions and proof that this is a passion project, like, here it is. Like, this is almost perfect in my opinion. So, okay, moving on. So, next, the squad gathers to eat fish around a small fire, again, near the body of water. Fido communicates with Shin what is needed to get them a heated bath, with Theo asking, "How the hell do you understand Fido so much, Shin?" And Fido says after this that there's a town nearby they can look for necessary material. Shin accepts, reiterating that they're not going anywhere in particular and wants to see the old Imperial territory. So they begin their walk through the town later that day. So the town's in ruins, obviously, 9 years in ruins. Raiden says that while they were brought together through war, they never would have met otherwise. So he asks Shin if he remembers living in the Giadian Empire, but Shin says only his parents were born there and that he never lived there himself, saying that he doesn't even remember his parents that much. So this is where Shin stops by a tunnel, beginning to walk into it, but Raiden stops him, telling him not to wander off. Okay, before I continue, I want to stop right there and just kind of slightly continue the discussion we had before about Shin. My immediate reading of this scene when Shin was looking into that dark tunnel, it's kind of that old cliche, the call of the void. You know, people experience at times this beckoning for death and you want to oblige it, you know, such as certain people, you know, like when they walk up to the edge of a cliff, you know, like you feel this almost need to step over the cliff into the void. This is kind of how I interpreted this scene with Shin.
I agree, because I don't want to derail that point, because I think add to it, I think this is Shin acting on his own impulse. This is not him thinking of leading the rest of his crew with him. He's going this way because, like you said, like he feels the call. He's feeling this compulsion to do so.
Well,
but
I mean, it was even
right
asked him by Raiden, saying, "Are you going to cross this ocean or this body of water by yourself?"
Exactly. I think he says that a bit later, but no, you're absolutely right. Like,
I feel like
Raiden's feeling that. He's feeling those vibes from Shin, for sure.
Well, yeah, because right now, this is not the Shin this is not the Reaper or the Undertaker. This is Shin as himself, acting on his own impulses.
And again, to skip ahead a bit, we see the armband that's been around his neck. It's now around his arm. Another representation of, you know, he's moved on from his brother. He has his neck scar open for the world to see. Like, where do I go from here? You know? No, again, the visual storytelling in this show is, I don't know. I love it.
It's great because you can piece
forever, but
you can piece about it from what you see, what you read through the dialogue, and just what you hear. Not like we don't even go on about it enough. Just the music, everything that you see scene by scene, especially the beginning of this episode, is so beautiful and fitting. And when the Legion are passing, it's menacing. It's
right. Okay. Like you still get that, like, you know, like that helplessness.
It's diegetic. It's diegetic at its finest. Like, it's even just the rumbling of the Legion as they're passing by. Like, you don't need like strings or like the strum of instruments to build you that dread. It's just that, like, the sound of the
ambience.
Yeah, it's the ambience.
Like, okay, I'm going to upset some listeners by saying this, but I'm just going to say it because I feel like it's a valid point of comparison. Take recent light novel adaptions like Overlord or Slime or...
Oh, they're great.
or regular Magic High School. Just take...
I don't like
any
that
of the take any of these adaptions, whether you like them or not, but take this moment-to-moment visual storytelling and just compare. Like, there is no comparison. Like, in those shows, it is what you see is what you get. You're only getting the textual meaning directly.
Okay, so yes,
that's being nice.
Yes, I see where you're going there.
Before you say anything else, just let me say, I'm not trying to throw too much shade on these shows. What I am saying is this show takes full advantage of its audio-visual presentation to the fullest extent. Like,
100% agree.
Yes, and like when we were coming off of other like light novel adaptations like Shield Hero or Overlord or Slime or anything like that,
or really any, like, even manga, like any adaptations, like if I'm being honest,
we don't get the respect that we're getting with this. Like, not a single scene is wasted in this show, whereas, like, yes, as enjoyable for me as Overlord and Slime are, like, some of that shit's just like
even by other shows by A1 Pictures.
I'm not, before it sounds like I'm hating too much. I only bring this up because I actually watched them. I'm not even talking about all the garbage I dropped or skipped entirely. So
Like,
don't get
no,
the wrong idea.
I'm even saying, like, even from past series that A1 Pictures has adapted, like, this is leagues above anything I've seen from the studio in years past, like, for a long time. Like, this is clear as day that lots of passion and talented people worked on this and gave more than a shit that it turned out as good as it did. And I think it's worth giving them praise.
This is the power of passion.
Yes.
And as loath as I am to say, like, they probably were not compensated nearly as much as they
probably
deserved
not.
The creative team,
Yeah, with that
as
most
is common in the industry.
Which is that most recent article on how Mappa's getting like $2 for some of their animators on Netflix.
Exactly. So. Just yet another example. Mappa being, and that's a whole other discussion for another time. But the industry as a whole is wildly exploitative, though. So it's when you get stuff like this that it's just inspirational. So again, we're gushing way too much, but I almost don't even care because I just love the show too much. So next, the squad manages to have a heated bath later that day, with Fido managing to find a boiler in the town, with Raiden commenting, "The Imperials ran and left the fuel." Again, 9 years ago. Shin laughs freely at what Fido is air quotes saying to him around the bonfire that evening, causing Raiden to once again look on concerned, because it's not characteristic for Shin to just let out these hearty belly laughs that he's been doing lately. So the squatter remarking around the fire with Shin now asleep, saying that he seems to be much more at peace, with the camera panning across the white band around his arm. Raiden eventually gets to the heart of the matter, saying, "It feels like he has nothing left, at least a little bit anyways. That's how I feel." So next, they wake to find that Shin has run off, with his Juggernaut still being nearby. So they make their way to the tunnel from earlier, coming across a zoo, with Andrew remarking, "They kind of look like us," referring to the bones of the zoo animals. So next they find Shin looking onward at an old Legion low, with Shin saying it can't move at all. So he didn't feel it was a threat, so he's going to ignore it, because of course he has the sense. He knew it was nearby the entire time. But he remarks that it was calling out to him, and that it was an 86 just like us. So on one hand, that's an easy way to explain why he started walking towards the tunnel in the prior episode. But there's also that other charge implication that I went through earlier. Like, I like both readings, and they can both be correct at the same time. But Raiden asks him its last words, with Shin responding, "I want to go home." And then afterwards he executes it, kind of like he does for other members of the Spearhead squad, like he's giving it its mercy. So Shin brings up the rumor with Raiden about there being possibly any surviving countries but the Republic. Raiden responds of having heard of such stories, places where the Legion don't go, and Shin says, well, perhaps, this is true, and saying that there might be survivors out there. And during this entire exchange between them, we visually see the visage of this boar skeleton, and it's kind of panning out from that visage of the skeleton.
Trapped in the cage. Is that where they're all going to die, in the cage?
Exactly. All the squad is kind of giving their input on this imagery and on what Raiden and Shin just said, kind of in parallel. So, again, a very visually charged show.
Even before we move on from this, I love how it switches from the perspective of them looking on the husk of this trapped creature who died in its, being a hostage to its environment. Uh-huh. I love how it switches from its perspective to them on the outside of the cage. Like, exactly. As they narrate this, it's so good.
Like, I can only, I would devour a documentary with the creative staff behind this show. Like I would give a lot to be in that creative, like the room with the director and the producers and the writers. Like, oh man, dude, like it's so good.
Yep.
So Raiden asks Shin from this point, are you planning on going to the other side of the water alone, as you said, Rob? And he doesn't answer, though. Next, I believe this is like the post-credits sequence. So we get a black screen. We hear a gunshot after the ending theme concludes. With blurry imagery from 4 years prior, it's like a video feed. As Shin takes a name from a juggernaut while Fido looks on, kind of during the sunset. So Shin says to Fido, his squad was eliminated, but asks if he will accompany him, to which he accepts. And up to this point, it's been pretty clear to us as the audience that Fido seems to be this sentient, autonomous tool.
AI.
AI that helps them, in the resupplies and various duties related to combat regarding like maintenance to the juggernauts. So through the perspective of Fido, we see a montage of Shin growing over the last 4 years till he joins the Spearhead squadron. And then we're treated to a montage that will just make you want to drink of the squadron's many personal, mundane, joyous, and tragic moments, all the way from the beginning to the very end, where we finally see Fido destroyed from a artillery shell by the Legion on October 30th. So I am completely glossing over the many heartrending scenes in this sequence.
You need to experience
I will give the
for
floor
yourself.
to you guys on your thoughts of this sequence.
Oh, I became a fucking wreck at this.
Depending on who you are, this might be the roughest scene in the entire series.
Oh no, this got me so hard.
It not only makes you feel for Fido, but it just adds so much more flavor and context to the characters we've been sticking with up to this point. We see so many of these, again, mundane and personal scenes with some of these characters pouring their hearts out to what they think is just a robot, and sometimes he'll just be seeing interactions and scenes of these characters where they don't think they're being looked on upon,
Right, but you get like the feeling that even this autonomous AI has formed a very human-like bond with these people.
Oh, absolutely.
Its very last moments are these scenes, these flashbacks, if you will, of all these precious moments spent with the squadron.
Never would I think that I would start catching feels for fucking Fido. Like, just this reoccurring,
and just Shin leaving the box of
his fallen
tags,
comrades.
Yeah, the tags of the other juggernauts and the fallen. Yeah, oh my gosh. No,
God,
I became a fucking wreck.
Yeah.
At the end of this.
Such a hard watch.
Yeah, like very nice of the team of this show to just leave that right at the end. But
literally the last spoken words of the episode is "thank you," which is the name of it by Shin to Fido.
Exactly. And they always kind of framed each shot of Fido's visage as if he has a tear running down his eye, even though it's kind of an artistic flair, But yeah, man, this episode. Any final thoughts on this episode as a whole? Like, for being a completely anime original episode, this is how you do it.
Yes.
Agree.
Now this is my favorite episode because not only does it give not even just nice closure to what happened before, because I would argue, episode 9, I would still say is the emotional climax of the series.
Episode 9 is
but
the GOAT.
My feelings and conclusive thoughts towards Shin would not be as well realized without episode 10. And hell, I would not have given a shit about Fido if it wasn't for this recontextualizing everything that I've seen up until this point with all the interactions and time the squad spent with him. Like, oh man.
And
I loved everything up to that point, but I wasn't expecting an emotional, like, non-flashback.
Not
at
only
the end.
that, yeah, but it's all just beautifully sequenced. I mean, we had Nico, who was only seen in the first episode, kind of the taller, darker skinned guy who dies in the first episode. He's the one who writes on the chalkboard, like 129 days left till end of term or whatever. Glory to this fucking Spearhead squadron, like this character we've barely seen. Like, we get that callback. We get to see Fido, seeing him make that mark on the chalkboard. We get to see that moment with Fido watching Kaie, something along the lines of "What is my favorite flower?" I think she's asked that by someone. Like, we get these small moments that just add so much more to these characters. Like, in many of these characters, we only had a brief moment with, but the show, the writing still cares enough to give these supposedly minor characters the humanity that they deserve. Like, these are all human beings, like like I don't have much more to say on it, but like the weight is there, like every step of the way. Like, again, this is probably the most beautiful montage this show has, of a show full of beautiful montages. So,
well, in the brave words of Miley Cyrus, it hit me like a wrecking ball.
Yeah, I mean, felt like this is like the 1,000th variant of this spiel I've had for this show, but I don't care. God, it's so good. All right.
Yeah. What about you, Rob? Like, we've kind of left you out.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you have any words.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that episode 9 is GOAT. My favorite episode, period. Mm-hmm. This episode did do a great amount with, like, character development and everything like that. What the fuck was with that cut at the end of the episode? Fuck that. And fuck you for doing that to me and making me wait a week for that bullshit. I hate it. I hate you. Stop it. I get it. It was great. It was great. I'm being facetious, but I also thought that it was pretty odd that Lena was completely excluded from this episode.
I think that benefits, though.
I do as well, but like, as the main protagonist, she was excluded.
I believe the crux, and I think, how do I want to phrase this? I think the greatest moments with Lena are yet to come, and that's going to be in season 2.
I think so too. Well, even in the second half of this season, like, let's go.
For sure. All right, moving on to the final, to episode 11, before we jump into the great beyond. So, episode 11. At the very beginning of this, we see how Fido is destroyed. He was taking a low shell for Shin. So, take one step back. They're in the heat of combat. Fido notices that a low tank on the Legion side is about to take a shot at Shin. He jumps in the way right at the right moment, takes the shot for Shin. And after that, they manage to clean up the Legion resistance. So, next day in the morning, we see a toolbox next to Fido. Shin's walking away from it. And we can imply from what he says to Raiden that Fido was still functional on some level, though immobile. So he may have shut down Fido at this moment, saying that either way, he said that he can't take Fido with them and that this was a mercy. So I think it's easy to infer that he shut Fido down. So he said, we won't be going much further. Yeah. We won't be going much further ourselves. So again, very consistent with Shin's character. He always gives the mercy kill to whoever, whether it be friend or foe. So next, we find the squadron in a situation where they're nearly out of supplies and only Shin's Juggernaut still moves. So they all agree to take turns piloting the Juggernaut, with whoever being in the seat being the one to fight if they encounter the Legion. So sometime later, Shin tells Kurena to stop and head for a cave that's nestled in a hill where they park the Juggernaut and their supplies as it rains while a contingent of Legion pass by. Real quick, any thoughts on these opening scenes from you guys?
Well, there goes our peaceful happiness of our last episode. Like, the opening is like, oh, shit hits the fan again. Found out what happened to Fido. I mean, things seem bleak again. Like, that last episode kind of, right?
Well, I mean,
like, that last episode
things
gave
are,
us hope, right?
well, yeah, I mean, now the tone has shifted. Like, they're on their last leg. Like, things are desperate now. They are.
This was inevitable.
Right. Like, we're just seeing the inevitability of their situation come to a head. And now, like I said, things are getting desperate.
Yeah. But even despite all that, despite how clearly desperate and doomed they are, they're always putting on their best faces because they're well adjusted to the mentality that any moment may be our last. They just
right. Like none of them are reserved to like feeling despair or like giving up. Like they're right.
They're well past that, which makes it all the more inspirational and all the more heartbreaking. Like, it's just the worst, shittiest situation, but at the same time, they're like a beacon of light in pitch black. So, next, they head into another overgrown town and stop at the Imperial City First Elementary School. Again, in the remnants of the Jihad Empire. So, Kurena, excited at the prospect of actually seeing a school, as she's never actually been to one, suggests that they sleep there tonight. Shin accepts. So they have a conversation about school and studying, where Anju eventually pretends that she's a teacher taking attendance.
So wholesome. This entire scene is so wholesome.
This is all in service of, humoring or giving Kurena this experience she never had. So, next, they begin destroying the chairs and other items for firewood, including textbooks. I mean, Shin says, textbooks we can't read are useless. Let's just make a fire with this. So, Theo picks up a book, which is called Nihonica Workbook, which is like Nihon meaning Japan, but this is called Nihonica. So maybe sometime in the later 21st century, Nihon became Nihonica or something. Who knows? Because I think we can all clearly infer this is Earth at this point. So, he opens up the book to see pages full of practice strokes for kanji. These strokes meaning water on the left page and flat on the right page. If you can infer any more meaning from that, please tell me. Because if there is like some hidden charge meaning to that, I don't know what it is. But at the bonfire, Kurena eats the last piece of candy that they had, kind of concluding this sequence at the bonfire before the next day. Real quick, any thoughts about this scene at the school or the one right before? I love this scene just as it's yet another.
Yeah, it's like Rob inferred, it's giving Kurena that experience she never had out of school. But I mean, this is unfortunately the last moment of peace and happiness. The last night of
pretty much,
yeah, just the last night.
Exactly. And I like that detail again with all the clear Japanese characters around the classroom and in the textbook, like, and not only that, but also the character oh god, what's her name again? Kai herself. To me, like, this is clearly 2148 Earth. Like, I had this idea in my mind that this might be like an alternate, or like a different planet or something with similar motifs. But nah, this seems to be future Earth to me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I kind of always thought it was just like future Japan.
Nah, I think this is like Europe. I think this is future Europe. Personally.
Agreed.
Do you think so?
Yeah. No, for whatever reason. I mean, there is like this Japanese like classroom and like textbook, but nah, I think this is like a European region. I mean, I don't have a real basis for seeing that. I think there was like a map showed earlier on, but I don't know if there's any distinguishable geographic. It's not
right. Yeah, at this point, it doesn't really matter all that much, but
Yeah,
no,
it
was
doesn't
a sweet
really.
little scene before,
Yeah,
the calm
yeah.
before the storm.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Sorry, that was a tangent on my end. But all right. So next, on October 31st, which I will just be referring to as the final day, Raiden appears to have filled the Juggernaut with the last of their fuel, stating that we'll be lucky if this lasts the full day. Anju takes the shift to pilot. So the squad eventually hits a sheer cliff after they left the town, with Shin saying they should ascend. So later, everyone is resting in the back, kind of the cart the Juggernaut's pulling along. And this is when Shin asks to switch with Anju prematurely, stating that he's bored, and the squad just kind of laughs it off, like, oh, you kind of had us worried for a second there. So Shin detaches from the cart immediately after getting in the cockpit and once Anju's in the cart, saying, the one who pilots fights, right? And as he's saying this, he uses the grapple hooks to just kind of pull off some rocks from the cliff ledge and block the road, so making sure they can't catch up in any way. He instructs him to keep walking through the forest till the Legion voices disappear, in hopes of finding others. So after the squad pleads that he stops, he deactivates his parade to go engage the Legion, because as he said, it's a unit we will not be able to dodge. Next, we find Shin fighting a hopeless battle against numerous Legion, almost hit once again by the ultra long-range artillery cannon as he destroys a few units. And at this moment, again, he's bloodied, he's dazed, almost hit by this cannon. And then he's suddenly flooded mentally with violent imagery and a voice proclaiming, "I'll kill you," saying it will kill anyone who threatens the princess. The Legion moves in to take Shin's head as he's incapacitated, and this is where the rest of the squad try to have their glorious hero moment. Trying to save him, he calls them fools, stating that they can't defeat them with their light arm weaponry. So all they have is basically just light arm rifles in their hands. So one by one, we see the squad meet their ambiguous fates. It's unclear whether or not they've sustained lethal wounds, but they're all on the ground. And finally, Shin says, "When I'm a part of the Legion, whose name will I call out?" And in this very scene, we see near his foot in the cockpit, Doulahan's insignia. Of course, his brother Rei, his insignia. And then we leave off from there. These last couple of scenes, what did you guys think?
So Shin lied.
Oh,
He's
God.
crossing the water without them. That fucking mortar is back.
Yeah, that ultra long range artillery cannon that they didn't
And
see until that one fight.
Also, you're gonna cut there, you fucking dicks.
I mean, you gotta hold the suspense till the next season.
Like, I'd like to think it's ambiguous, but until I see them stand up in season 2, these guys are dead, and I'm sad.
No, it's because it's so... No, they would have been blown apart. Like, I call it ambiguous because it's left unclear. It doesn't... Like, no, they would have been way more graphic if they didn't want it to be unambiguous.
Now, here's the thing. This is an obvious sign of me not having read the light
I haven't
novel.
either. That's my reading.
So I have no idea if they survived or not.
So we're not at the end of the episode yet, but I'm just going to say right now, this is where we leave off with Shin and company, okay? I just want to get that out of the way. With that being said, here's my take. I'm not buying that any of them are dead until I see them dead, you know? Because all we see are them lying on the ground with no clear mortal wounds, okay? That's what I'm saying. This show is not afraid to depict graphic death, you know? But they left it very ambiguous. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead with your thoughts. Like,
no,
that's my thoughts.
Before the next part. I mean, yeah, the only one we truly see meet their end does.
Well, no.
Yeah, I guess we better not. We better not end it with there, should we?
No, not right now. But
okay.
However,
my feelings.
Even with that, I contest. No, go on.
Okay,
Rob, go on.
No, I mean, if we have more to elaborate on the part I was going to say.
We will.
Okay.
but these last couple of scenes up to the cliff and the fight.
Okay. I mean, yeah, Shin did the dirty thing, trying to save his comrades at the expense of going out and
of himself. Like, he's
yeah,
making good on that call of the void. Like, let them, I care about them, let them live, but I fulfilled my purpose. That's how I read it.
No, I didn't have much more beyond that without spoiling what ultimately happened. So unless you had something to add to that, Rob, I was going to leave it there.
Okay. All right. So moving on, we see Lena arrive finally to the barracks, and she meets with Albrecht for the first time. I think I've been calling him Albrecht in the prior recordings, but to my knowledge, it's actually Albrecht. So with him remarking she's under house arrest. So clearly she got in trouble with the mortar situation. So he tells her to go take a look at what was left behind before revealing his own history, saying, I've been watching kids go off on their last march for a long time, but I've never seen a handler come out here like she has. So it's at this point where he reveals that he is also an Alba, as me and I'm sure probably some of you guys suspected, and that his wife and daughter were also 86s. So he dyed his hair when the state came to take them away, with him volunteering to serve in hopes of reclaiming their rights for them on the field of battle, but says in the end they died on the battlefield before he could make good on that. So one of his first questions to Shin, he reveals, is when he learned of his ability was if there was any legion out there asking for someone similar to his identity, saying that he would let that legion kill him because obviously, clearly he feels guilt for the entire situation. But he said that there weren't, as Shin said. So he says to the 86 who make it to this point, he always tells them that he is an Alba before they go on their special recon mission at the end. So whenever they get this far to the end, when they're right about to get to the end of their service, of course they receive the suicide mission.
Right.
So whenever they get to that point, he reveals his true nature to them. And he tells them that they're free to hate us or even kill him if they so choose. When I say us, I mean the Alba. So yeah, he gives a choice. Like, if you want to let your steam off on me, go ahead. But he says they never do. Thus he remains. And at the very end, Lena thanks him and heads to the barracks. So I kind of always had an inkling about Albrecht in that regard. Real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling this was the case too. I mean, it was it felt very climactic.
So,
I mean, because ending the series without this, I feel like kind of would have been a waste of his character, because he always had a connection and some form of a bond with the Spearhead squadron.
So my thoughts,
it was beyond that of just one of the, quote unquote pigs from the Republic. Like, he actually communicated with them and cared about their well-being to an extent that they never did.
Yeah. And it's like Theo's old commander. It's like Lena's father. Like, the series goes to lengths to show that the Alba themselves, ultimately, they're just as human as anyone else. The thing is, though, they're in this position of privilege and power and oppression that blinds most of them to the real horrors that's going on. And there are those outside of that net that see the true extent of the carnage they're inflicting on the oppressed in this situation. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, they hail these very idealistic extremes that, this war that's going to be ending real soon is done. So it's being done in our backyard with no casualties. There's nothing to worry about. You don't need to worry about the morality of how we fight this war. But yeah, Albrecht in this case is one of the few rare Alba that not only know what's going on, but actively chooses to stay in this place and form a connection with these 86.
Well, I mean, he's like any of the other Alba we've seen who opposes the regime.
Well, it's just good to see that somebody other than Lena has this feeling.
Right, she's definitely not alone. in spite of what her uncle was stating like a few episodes prior. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's clearly not the case. There are those who see the hypocrisy that the Republic hails.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving on to the end of the episode. Lena peruses the barracks to see how the old squad lived, trying to gain further insight on those she once commanded, as she recalls what they once said about the cat, noticing it pawing at Shin's old desk drawer, because she notices it kind of running off, and she follows it, she sees it pawing the drawer, she opens it. Here she finds its favorite toy in the shape of a pig, suitably, when she notices the book inside, All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a great choice for this scene because it is a decidedly inglorious novel about the enduring traumas and desolation of war. Funnily enough, written by a German veteran from World War I, which of course was banned by Nazi Germany because it was too real and went against the hyper-nationalistic message of, you know, what the Nazis stood for. But
yeah, like for those who really want to like take that subtle hint, like doing realizing everything that you just said right there is something most people wouldn't even think twice about just at a first glance.
Again, like sometimes a narrative is better served not being subtle. Like sometimes you just want to slap it right in front of the audience. I think it's well served in this context.
Oh, for sure. Like everything you spoke about right there applies directly to the story that's being told with 86. Just even subtextually.
It's one aspect. To me, the forefront in my mind is how it addresses bigotry and genocide, but this is also a very relevant critique and like a commentary that this can be pulling from, because this is also extremely relevant to the story it's telling. But so she opens the book, finding some notes in it. So she opens the first one, and it's various notes by the Spearhead squad, what was remaining in the last 5 members before they left, with them trying to alleviate some of her guilt, with Raiden saying basically like, I guess you were idiotic enough to come out here and read this, something to that effect, but good on you, basically. And then Theo saying, because there's like a picture also in the book, like the final picture taken of the Spearhead squad. Theo said he went through the trouble of notating each of the people's names who were deceased in the squad in that picture. So he leaves that note. And then in another note, we see Karina and Anju remarking about the cat, with I think Anju saying it still needs a name. And then Shin finally capping it off with, if one day you make it to our final destination, would you please leave us flowers? You know, and this is where she kind of finally has her last vulnerable moment. This is kind of her closing moment with the old Spearhead squadron. And this is where we see her looking down the train tracks once again at sunset, looking off into the darkness with a look of resolve in her eyes. And she says,
or the badass music drops. Oh yeah,
exactly.
This is where this part of Lena's true journey begins.
Exactly. And she says to herself, I can keep walking too. So the final shot of her walking back, she walks by the 86 statue that's been sitting there through the entire series, with its head finally completely gone. It's fallen off at this point. And to me, that's like clear visual like storytelling in regards to like Doulahan, you know, the headless specter basically. So, and then the end credits roll as per usual. Before I get to the post-credit sequence and final thoughts in the series, any more from you guys over those scenes?
I'll let you start first, Rob, because I only have a few thoughts besides just the moments we see Lena in the office.
I thought it was pretty neat that Lena is literally the first handler that was out at the barracks.
Not surprising based on what we've seen from the other pieces of shit, but
and again, it's good to know
great.
that there's an Alba out there that's still trying to make up the sins for the nation. So
I feel like the only way to really make up for it is to actively work against it at this point. There's no saving it. To me, the only happy ending. I mean, honestly, we don't know enough about the Legion at this point to really make any conclusions on them. But what we can conclude is that the Republic is an evil as fuck fascist state that needs to be retribution there. And I'm thinking in the Nuremberg trials variety of retribution at the very least. So
yeah,
go on.
no,
Go on.
I love this, and I said office. I meant the lounge area. Where the 86 were. Yeah, I thought it was a great scene. I mean, she's on the verge of breaking down, just seeing the handwritten like salutations of the whole crew in that book with a photo. Like that's the only moment she got to see any of their faces. And just the resolve, the whole. I mean, just the soundtrack leading up to the ending sequence and the music drop at the end with the credits. Yeah, everything. It was a great way to cap off the episode, and it's not even technically done yet, but yeah, I thought it was great.
Again, like in my opinion, like I'm fulfilled. I'm full after this. Like I think it's told what it wants to tell. Yeah, textually it's like an inconclusive ending, but thematically, the ideas it's peddling, the emotional core of what it's trying to do, like I feel it's all been conveyed. Like, I would be happy leaving it here. However, the author feels they had more to tell. So I look forward to what more she has to say on that point.
So I have certain feelings. So we never covered the original Megalobox, but after covering Nomad Megalobox 2, I feel like like you said, it retroactively makes the first series even better.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, makes a very wonderful, compelling sequel that I would say even surpasses the original. What my feelings with 86, I think it's a wonderfully written and beautifully directed series. I feel like I agree with you. It's told the story that it's wanted to tell with the crew of, the 86 themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I would be as satisfied if the story ended here because I still want to see more from Lena. And I feel like she will be the focus of the second season.
That I get what you're saying, and I partially agree with that. But I feel like she's reached that conclusion at the end of this season. Like, she's reached a realization that there is no reforming the system from within. I have to actively work against it.
Right. And I feel like because this is the moment where like she's taken the call to action, I feel like leaving it here would be anticlimactic.
In a way it is. Like from a certain yes. Like in a way you're absolutely right. But
as far as the
maybe I'm just saying this from the perspective of, seasonal anime storytelling. Like if I were talking about like a novel, like yeah, this would clearly be like the first third act, but as far as like what we get in anime, I'm like, okay, I'm good here. Like Megalobox 2 is like an extreme anomaly. Like I'll be thrilled if this can, match that or even get close to that, but like that sense of, justifying its sequel, but we'll see.
Man,
I guess.
Man, if it has the same passion and attention to detail and just talented people, if they get the same treatment, or let me rephrase that, if they're allowed to put the same amount of time and effort in the second season as they did this, I have faith. Because man,
I mean, I would too.
This was a bombshell banger that I was not expecting.
Yep. Same.
From beginning to end, and we still haven't even ended yet.
Yeah, we have one final scene. So, in the final scene, post credits, Shin wakes up to find his brother before him in a completely white backdrop. So they're in a white void, basically. So he wakes up. He's in his younger form. So when he was a child, like when Rei strangled him, same age. They're both same age as then in this vision. So he sees his brother, and Rei dons a knight's shining armor in this sequence, and he takes Shin with him off into the white void. And this is where we finally pan down to what appears to be Shin's headless corpse lying against a black backdrop. And that's where we end it. So
It's a dick way to fucking end it, dude. I'm still mad.
Pretty abstract ending, but powerful nonetheless. Like, you could see this is in Shin's mind. This is what he always yearned for between him and his brother.
Yes.
It's sad as hell. I don't really know what else to say other than that shit is sad.
Tragic. Yeah. No, like, as far as I'm concerned, Shin's dead as a doornail.
I don't know if I'm willing to go that far yet.
I'm rather convinced.
I think there's a reason he decided to not kill himself and let himself join the Legion. Because I think
he couldn't kill himself. It knocked the gun out of his hand.
That leads me to speculation into season 2, but that's if we want to end our discussion. Because I have thoughts about that, but we can finish any.
No, give your thoughts.
So, moving forward, once again, we can't beat this dead horse enough. I fucking love this show. There was so many surprise, wonderful moments, episode to episode, that not only kept me engaged, but gave me reasons to want to see more. I came in like glass half empty at first. It went from glass half full, episode by episode. I'm coming in with a full glass, like by episode 6, and it's overflowing. Now, by the end of this, I feel like the arc of these 86 have been fulfilled. And now what remains to me is I want to see the climax of Lena's character arc, because I feel like we got to the point where she's taken the call to action, and we see her grow from, the obedient yet slightly out of place, soldier of the Republic.
Going from being a naive but well-meaning but still ultimately oppressor to, no, I'm directly working against the oppression.
Right, like it was her in the lie that she believed, but now that she understands the truth and has taken the call to action to right this, her fight is now with the Republic. I feel like going into season 2, she not only does she need to be the main focus, but I feel like the focus should be on her primarily, which leads me into why not only am I convinced Shin has bitten the dust here, I feel like he may be a shepherd going into season 2.
And that's something I definitely considered as well. Like, he could be the new shepherd. That would make a very powerful enemy for Lena. Like, that would make a very good enemy for Lena.
And especially considering, I feel like,
but that's also the loophole the plot needs to possibly give the other members of the Spearhead a way out. Because, I feel like I'm not fully integrated yet, so I'll let you guys go or some shit,
Right, because now that the fight will be turning to the Republic itself, I believe, going into season 2, now the stakes have to be, okay, with the Shinigami, the Undertaker now being easily one of the most competent shepherds that the Legion has at their disposal now. What I am curious to see is if Shin will use his willpower or some anime shit to not maybe lead the Republic to their ends, but not by the means at which it's been going at this rate. I feel like the Republic has to be taken down, but him and Lena at some point have to converge paths, and I have thoughts about this.
Yeah. And we'll be concluding this, but again, when I say, we don't really know the full story of the Legion, all we really know is the Republic fucking sucks. The Legion are mindless killing machines for the most part, but we still don't know their full circumstances. And really, are they so bad for fucking trying to kill the Republic? Because the Republic, again, really sucks.
I mean, they are their oppressors by every stretch of the imagination.
And also, we did get that really cryptic sequence of mental imagery flooding Shin's mind. There's clearly another shepherd or some greater force trying to protect an air quotes princess. There's way more to that story, clearly. But you have a very...
It's for another discussion.
Yes. And we have to end this. But it's a very inhuman... machine evil, not even evil. It's a very inhuman foe versus a very tangible human evil, I guess is what I want to say. But yeah, we're out of time. Like, we're well out of time. But honestly, again, this is just another series I want to gush endlessly about. So it's all right.
Yeah, props to the studio. A1, you did great. Everyone who worked on this, you deserve every credit imaginable. Well done.
Easily. All right. Any parting thoughts from you guys before we conclude this?
This is probably my favorite anime of the season. Honestly.
It's so difficult for me.
Right now, because our final episode, I'll rank them, but as I stand right now, this is my number 2.
You see, normally for me, it's purely emotional, and I did get the strongest emotional response from the show. I want to say on multiple occasions, but okay, we'll get into it later. But it's a conundrum. That's all I'll say. All right. Well then, to wrap things up, be sure to tune in for our discussion on episodes 9 through 13 of Odd Taxi. Feel free to give us a follow on our Twitter at 444pod, all 4s numerical, to receive any news or updates regarding the podcast. You can also feel free to email us at 444podc@gmail.com. Again, that's 444pod letters C@gmail.com with any questions you would like featured on a future episode. If you like what we're doing with the podcast, we would love it if you'd like to comment and subscribe on your platform of choice, as this really helps us gain further traction and visibility. With that, thank you for joining us today. We hope you all have a great week, and join us next time as we discuss the next round of episodes for Odd Taxi. Have a good one, everyone.
You are not ready. You are not ready for Odd Taxi. Buckle yourselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely not ready. Take care.